Hey guys, so today's video is something a little bit different. I wanted to be able to kind of share my story, that's a bit of fluff, to share my story about kind of my infertility struggles and what I went through, because I really felt like whilst I was going through it, and I'm sure I told you this quite a lot of times, that I didn't really have anyone to talk to, I didn't really know where to get advice from, and I received quite a lot of bad advice. So I thought if I could share my story and have an open conversation about what I went through, then maybe it would help one person, or it would give one person advice, or it would make one person feel better. And I know when I kind of shared briefly on my Instagram, I had so many messages from people going through similar things and just feeling reassured by just knowing, you know what it's like, you're putting yourself out there, and it helps people know that they're not alone. So,
and I would say we've been doing the blog now for about 6 years or so. And I'd say the majority of that, you've kind of been going through this journey. And I know some of it, but I definitely don't know everything, because as much as kind of when the time was right, we kind of did talk about it, I would say the blog was kind of an escape for you, wasn't it? Because at the time, you know, all of your friends were falling pregnant, me included. I think, your last one. So I think, you know, there were times where we did speak, but there was only so much I knew and could help you
and
with.
also, I think I found that when you're going through kind of the IVF, which I'm going to talk about, and all your doctor's appointment stuff, often there isn't a lot to say. So when people would say, you know, the few people were obviously like Philippa that I had told, and they would say to me, what's going on, you know, tell me, fill me in. I'd say nothing, I'm waiting on results, or it's not the right time, or whatever, the levels weren't right. So it's a long process, and they're often, when there's nothing to say, that can kind of make you feel bad. So I, like you said, preferred to delve into Twinset, and that was my real escapism. Like, it was the one constant throughout all kind of the hard times, that I could just kind of escape into wearing pretty clothes and, you know, forget about everything else. So I'll begin at the beginning and hopefully share as much of my story as I can. I've taken a video diary as well. Just, do you know, it was funny, because it wasn't funny, but in my last round of IVF, so I had 3 rounds of IVF, and my last round, I did feel differently about the whole thing. I was in a much better, positive. I was in a better frame of mind, and I just thought, I didn't even know what I wanted to do with these videos, but I thought I would just take a few videos along the way, just so if I ever wanted to share my story, and just as a kind of for myself to remember. So I've taken some videos which we're going to include, just so you can see the journey within this YouTube video. And you know what, it is a bit different. It's not something we've done before, something so raw. And if you want to run back to the pretty clothes and you don't, this isn't for you, then that's fine, but this is life.
And I think most importantly, it will, you know, as you say, if it makes one person feel better from watching this and realising that you're not alone when you're going through it. And
also, life in those squares isn't always what it seems, and we both know that. The easiest place is to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, which is...
How long were you know, trying for before you then went to IVF? Did you start IVF, or did you...
I think it was about a year we were trying, and my husband kind of had a feeling that there was something that was wrong. I don't know, he just thought that something wasn't right, like it was taking a while, and we were young and stuff. So we went to see various people, and we ended up with the doctor that was recommended to us. And I think that's my first kind of alarm bells that was for me, is that I really didn't do any research. You know, someone recommended, a family friend or a couple of people recommended I go to see a doctor. I'm not going to name names.
What, and this doctor you just didn't connect with, or he wasn't?
No, I connected with him, but I didn't do any research. I just went by what other people said, and I think it's such a personal thing, and it's everyone's journey is so different. So for me, just to listen, to go to a doctor that was just recommended by a few people, why didn't I find the best doctor that was right for me?
But at that stage, I guess you
don't
really know.
And that's the thing, you don't know. So that's my first piece of advice, is don't rush into it. So we went to see this doctor. We both had kind of various tests, and a few things came up that was wrong on my husband's side and on my side. So we knew that it wasn't going to be kind of necessarily an easy journey. And the first advice we were given was that we could keep trying to see what happens, but you know what, in this life we're impatient, and I hate to say it, you would agree, we're used to getting things right now. Mm-hmm. So for me to think, oh, it could wait another a year or 2 years, that was just an instant no for me. Before we went into IVF, we had something called an IUI, which is where they basically just insert the sperm with like a catheter inside you, so it's kind of already up there and it can fertilise the eggs. And so that was like December, how old am I? I'm 33, before I was 30, 4 years ago, let's say. And the whole thing was like a real disaster. The sperm wasn't, well, the sample wasn't good, I wasn't in a good place, we were both really stressed out, and even the doctor said I should never have done this. So that was kind of, yeah, which you don't want to hear that when you're like going through a procedure. I mean, it wasn't terribly painful, it was alright, but it's not what you want to hear kind of when you're going into it. So that was kind of our first knockback, but it was my 30th in February, and a friend of mine was getting married in Mexico. We had a great holiday planned, so we thought, let's just put a line underneath that and start again in the new year. So we decided just to go straight for IVF, round one.
And was that because you didn't want to, at that time you wanted to really speed things up and be more kind of vigilant with it, rather than kind of go with this?
The IUI again.
From my understanding, is IUI a little less invasive?
It is, but the results only really increase your chances by about 10%.
Okay.
So I think if there are kind of a lot of issues, then it's probably not the right protocol for you. And we just felt like after that, because we had a bit of a disaster with the first one, if we're going to end up with IVF, again, being impatient, why not go for IVF? So I think I did feel quite stressed out about the thought of it, because I suppose you just don't really ever think that you're going to have any problems. And you know what, I got through it, and so many people do, and it's incredible how many people, you know, you read so many articles in kind of papers and magazines and stuff. There are so many people, women all around the world, that need a helping hand. And I never felt ashamed or anything like that.
I remember you said to me, you know, like you didn't care that you weren't pregnant, but you want to know that it's going to come to an end.
Yeah.
And in, you know, 2, 3, 4 years' time, you will be pregnant.
Yeah.
And
but that's the thing, there's no guarantee. Even IVF only increases your chances by about 30%. So you can go to the best doctors in the world and have the best of everything, and it still doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. And that was quite, you know, tricky to get your head around. So we had the first round of IVF, and I mean, look, the first port of call is that you do the injections to make the eggs in your body. So normally we release an egg a month, like for you to, if you're trying for a baby, but in IVF you take injections so you can get lots of eggs in the hope to make lots of embryos, which they can then put inside you. So I think I made about 21 eggs. So you can imagine how you feel. You're injecting yourself every day, twice a day. You're very bloated and stuff, but it was fine. It was manageable. So that's part one, and then they do the egg collection. So you go under and they take the eggs out. It's like a minor operation. And then they fertilise the sperm and the egg in a dish, essentially. And then that creates an embryo. So, by the way, I'm not very good at science, and this is probably like really layman's terms, and also it's very blurry in my head.
I'm
but
sure you can't.
Essentially, this is what it is. And the first round, they look at them, see how they grow. We had 5 embryos, so that was 5 opportunities for them to put an embryo back inside me in the hope of a baby. And then after a couple of days, a couple of them weren't looking so good because they watched them over a period of time, and we were left with 3 embryos. So that's, as I said, 3 opportunities to get pregnant in this round of IVF. To cut a long story short, out of those 3 tries, 2 didn't work, and then 1 did fertilise, but I had a miscarriage. And you know, I think when you go through all of that process to get pregnant, and then you get pregnant, and then you have a miscarriage is hard for anyone. Loss is hard for anyone at any stage of the game. But I think, you know, when you try so hard to get somewhere, and also we were just so up in the clouds. I didn't even think that. I thought when I was pregnant, especially the first time,
You think it's, you know...
That's it. I just never... wasn't even told that oh well, it could just not continue. Like I just, the thought didn't cross my mind, and how stupid was I just to think that's it. I thought IVF's not that bad. It's worked like within the first, you know, round of IVF, and obviously we had the miscarriage, which was kind of a really big blow, and it takes time to, you know, get over it. And then we were advised to go for round 2. Also, I don't think I've really kind of covered the time factor of everything. It's a slow process because
you have to wait for cycles, right?
Yeah, so you have your eggs out, then you've got to wait a month you can put your embryo in fresh, or you can put it in frozen. Then once you have a miscarriage, or you've got to wait a month to let your body go back. So it, you know, that was probably over the first round, like a 6-month period. So round 2, I think I managed to pick myself up and kind of just be like, right, okay, this is our story. And you know what, I've got to say, I did have amazing, and still do, have amazing friends that were so supportive and helped me get through it, because...
I think that's what has been so amazing about Sarah through this whole process, is the amount of times that, like, like things have been really shit. And then you like pick yourself up and you're like, it's a new day, kind of thing.
But I think, I think you have to, and I think, you know, your mental, getting yourself around it, getting your head around things, is half of the battle, because you know what, we're all strong women here, and you know, you can take the injections, you can take the doctor's appointments, but I think mentally is sometimes the hardest part, just to kind of pick yourself up again. But I did. So yeah, so went on to round 2 with the same doctor, and I think I just accepted it for what it was. I knew that this was my journey, and just really tried to accept the situation, and we kind of went back with the same approach, which now looking back feels stupid because it didn't work. So why go back to the same approach? And again, that's something else. Why didn't I ask more questions? Why didn't I put my foot down about things? And there are a few things you can do before rounds of IVF, before you start the process again.
I do remember feeling that, but it's like, it's when you're so close with someone and you don't want to, like, you know, who was I to kind of
it's
say...
hard. Even like my mum felt she couldn't ask stuff, because I would bite her head off, be like, I'm trying, I know what I'm doing, but I didn't know what I was doing. It puts, and that's another thing, it does put your family and friends in a hard situation around you, because they want to be there for you, but it's hard when everyone's pregnant around you, or other life things are going on. You just got to almost try, and that's what I appreciated more than anything, was just being normal, because I wanted to kind of escape from all of that whilst I was going through it. So I went to round 2 and I had something called a scratch.
Sounds nice.
It's absolutely lovely, which apparently can, I actually don't even know, they basically put scissors inside you and scratch around, and it's meant to help a bit. It wasn't nice, but hey ho. So that was meant to help before I did round 2. So we did round 2 again, and same thing happened, did the egg collection, I took the eggs out, that's the egg collection, then we did the transfers. I had 3 embryos again, which for the amount of eggs collected and my age wasn't actually that many when they took out 21 eggs, and then I was only really left with 3 embryos at the end of it. So something still wasn't quite right. But I did explore like acupuncture and stuff during that time, and I did really enjoy it. And what I found was it was just an hour out away from my phone, just to kind of turn off, and it was relaxing, because I think sometimes your mind can go away with you. And
do they say that acupuncture can help with fertility?
Yeah, and I think it rebalances things, and especially before and after you're having like your embryo transfer, which is when they put the embryo back in, they really say there's something that can do to help, you know, before and after. So I did that, but unfortunately the lady that I found was quite far away, and I remember saying to you, like, I was rushing straight from work to
which
get
defeats the whole process.
That's the thing, you've got to find things alongside it that help you, because if you're going to go to acupuncture and feel a bit stressed when you're there, you might as well come home and have a bath, you know.
So that wasn't right.
So that wasn't quite right, but I did get there in the end with other stuff. But I had the second round with the 3 embryos, and the same thing happened. So I had 2 that didn't work, and then one of them I got pregnant with, and I had another miscarriage. And look, it's the same thing. It was horrendously hard, and I had those days where I didn't want to get out of bed, and then I started to really feel like, why me? Why me? But it could be worse, and I always felt like that. As much as it was a hard situation, there's always so many more terrible, awful things going on in the world, and I just tried to put my situation in perspective. And although I found it so hard, I kind of did down really believe that I would get there somehow one day. And I think having that little bit of faith was really important.
I do remember thinking you will fall pregnant because you can. It's not like you've never fallen pregnant.
Exactly. So that was some tiny shred of positivity, that the fact that it had happened, it just wasn't quite right. We weren't quite there. But I really felt like every time kind of something ended or a round ended, I did need to pick myself up again. But after that second round, me and my husband, we both agreed that we just couldn't go back with the same doctor, doing the same thing, and not getting anywhere. It just didn't feel right. People.
And I remember was this just when I had Alfie?
Yeah.
And I remember, I think Alfie was probably
a few weeks
old. And we went for coffee, and again.
No, because it was a hard time. It was
really hard. And we were just like...
We were like this, and you know what, I was telling her about me, and she just had a baby, and you felt so helpless, and it's hard.
I remember you telling me about this new doctor.
Yeah.
And I was like, try him, because this guy's not working for you.
Exactly. After the second round, I just decided to take a step back. I think we went on... Everyone used to say, we're going on so many holidays, do you remember? Oh, you're away again. And looking back, every time something bad happened, we went on holiday, and it was like our coping mechanism.
Well, it was an escapism.
Yeah, exactly. So we just decided to seek some different advice, and I had in my head that I didn't want to do IVF again. So actually rewind a bit before the new doctor, but so we went to see kind of someone else who was more of like a scanning expert, just to have a look at things really in depth, kind of inside, and we kind of retested a few things just to really see what was going on. And kind of the same issues on both sides came back, but again, no one ever said to us it wasn't going to happen. And that was something that we had to keep at the forefront of our minds, was that it would happen one day. We just didn't know when, and we didn't know when the right time was. And everyone would say to me, your baby's waiting up there for you, it's just got to be the right time. And I suppose that's what we tried to cling on to. So I then decided with this new doctor to go back to having some IUIs. This wasn't my final doctor, this was an interim doctor.
I don't think I know about this guy.
He's amazing. He's called Bill Smith. I'll link his details below. So we decided together to have these more tests and go back to IUI, because I just didn't have it in me to do an IVF round straight away. So we did 4 more IUIs. So that was 5 in total that I did, which again, maybe with hindsight I should have gone straight back into IVF, but I didn't want to, and I listened to my gut, which I think was important at that time. And then the 3 of them didn't work, and then I got pregnant on the last one. It was April before you had Alfie. So you had Alfie in the May. Mm-hmm. So we just fast forwarded a bit in before, but
it all seems
it's such a blur. I'm just remembering now as we're talking about it. And that for me was that was a bad time, because I didn't want to do IVF again, and I'd got it in my head that I didn't have to. And when I got pregnant, then I felt like, oh, I'm so grateful. Every time I feel so grateful for everything, but then you become very ungrateful easily, because I didn't have to do IVF, and I thought, oh, finally I've got there without IVF, but it wasn't meant to be. We picked herself up again, and during this time I also was really experimenting with kind of going to see kind of alternative therapies, and they advised me to go and see an amazing nutritionist called Melanie Brown, who I'll link below, who gave me lots of different advice which I hadn't heard before. Like, of course diet's going to make a difference, and I'm not an unhealthy eater. Okay, I like a bit of chocolate, but I wouldn't eat McDonald's. I don't drink fizzy drinks. I don't drink fizzy drinks, I was generally quite healthy. So I was kind of getting on a good path to, like, emotionally as well, but then obviously I had that blow. So then it was like, right, we're now here again, the IUIs aren't working, the previous doctor wasn't working, what are we going to do? Which is when I met who I think is the most amazing doctor. His name is Talha Sharaf, I will link it below, who was just a saviour for me, because he looked at things in a totally different way and gave me hope, but realistic hope. And that was the thing, he was the first person that was realistic with the situation.
And I remember, because at that point, obviously, you were kind of like, time, you know, like you just didn't want to wait anymore. And I remember this doctor was really steady with his approach, and kind of each process took his time to do like the best research that he could.
Yeah.
And at the time that was really hard for you, because you were like, come on, I just want to just do it now. But you know, I guess his approach of like looking into all the details, and then you'll tell the story, but I remember you telling me that by the time you get to IVF, the like actual process, you're like, was it 80% chance?
It was like 60, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
it was
like the time was worth it.
So we went to see this doctor, and he was really under the radar, but we went to see him and we liked his approach. He really took us as an individual case, and even though, you know, we were really lucky that we were able to kind of afford to do it privately and stuff, we weren't on the NHS, I still felt a bit like one size fits all for IVF, and that is just so not what it is. He really read through our notes, he retested absolutely everything. We went to see a million other specialists to check for so many other different things. I had more procedures, I can't even remember what they are now, to check other things weren't happening inside. So he had every single answer before we even uttered the word IVF. And another thing that he said to me that kind of really hit home was, you know what, there is a chance that it might not work for whatever reason. It's not 100%, as we've said, and that you might have to look into surrogacy. And I remember thinking like, oh my god, just something hadn't crossed my mind. He was just really kind of realistic about everything, and we took a long time to work out the protocol that we were going to use. He told us to go on a nice holiday, come back refreshed, which we did do, and then we would start, I think I saw him in the June of 2017, and then I started in maybe like the October. And everything was different. Even the medication I found easier this time round. And I think as well, I felt in a much better place. I'd got my head around, and I think you'll agree, I probably was the most stable around that time.
I think that was during the time I was off with Alfie, wasn't it?
No, I think it was when you just came back. Was it October?
Well, you've been doing reflexology.
Yep, so I felt like I was in a much better place. I found an amazing reflexologist who kind of was almost like a counsellor to me as well. So she would ask me things and we would talk about things, and I didn't really realise that actually I did have some unwritten kind of underlying, emotions that I think I needed to get out, and she really helped me kind of process all that, and I really enjoyed reflexology. I went to a spiritual healer who was amazing. It's not for everyone, but for me it was incredible. I was still with the nutritionist who was also fabulous, and I really was in a much better frame of mind. I felt like I had a good network around me of support that could kind of help me through my journey, and I think that's also, I probably said it before, I can't even remember, is a big part of it, is kind of working out what you need and having those people around you to kind of support you in any way that you can, because I don't necessarily think you know while you're going through it what you need until you find it, if that makes sense. And also that really helped me with the acceptance thing, like accepting the fact that I am going to have IVF again, it is going to be hard, it is going to be slow, it is going to be long, but no one's told me that it's not going to work. So my mindset was different, and I felt like, right, I can do this, we can do it. So we started, as I said, in the October, did all the injections again, did the egg collection, and this is when I started taking the video diary, by the way, so I probably will include those terrible videos within this video. So I'm waiting for some test results now, and I'm going to have a hysteroscopy and various other tests to make sure that the third round is going to be okay, because my one thing from the first 2 rounds was that I didn't have enough information and it all felt very rushed, and I had miscarriages and disasters, and so I feel like I want to go into the third round with more of a plan and know exactly what's going on. I'm with a really good doctor and I report back. And I've started my first nasal spray for IVF. I look like shit, but this is my first bit of the protocol and I haven't done it before, so we'll see how it goes. Part 1 of about 5 million. Nasal spray was absolutely fine, probably did it a bit wrong because it didn't go up enough, but yeah, I've got 10 days of this and then I will be starting the injections, so fingers crossed it does what it's supposed to do. I did my first injection this morning of Round of Ivf and I'm going to be doing menopur tonight. I feel fine, I feel good. It was definitely easier than last time's Round of Ivf. I didn't have to mix it myself, so it was just a pen, which makes life easier, so I'm grateful for that. Generally feeling quite good with the process. Just had my spiritual healing, which always makes me feel good, and looking forward to seeing what happens next. So this is day 9 of injections, and I was told that I needed to take some laxatives because I was constipated. A lovely effect of the medication. I know it actually doesn't look so bad, but I've got 26 26 follicles growing in there, which is quite a lot. So I'm going to be having these out hopefully in the next couple of days, and we can see how many embryos we've got. But I'm really uncomfortable, I really feel bloated and it hurts, but it will be worth it and I'm looking forward to the next stage. This is my 21st injection, past 10 days, and I'm going to get my egg collection done on Monday. So hoping for lots of eggs, which turned into lots of embryos. Felt quite good throughout the whole thing, obviously bloated and stuff, but I'm looking forward to not doing any more injections, and I will report back as to how many eggs and embryos, hopefully third time lucky for us. I'm about to have the egg collection. I've got my gorgeous gown on. Do you think it's a good look? And we'll report back how many eggs I've got. I'm about to go under second time. It should be fun. Done 23 eggs, just recovering afterwards. Went quite well. Don't remember anything, a bit sore and uncomfortable, but looking forward to seeing how many embryos are going to be made. Did the egg collection, had about 24 eggs I think it was, fertilised them with the sperm, and this time we had 5 embryos. We had also decided to do genetic screening during this round, which is essentially they take a swab of the embryo once it's fertilised and they test it for all different genetic issues, so like Downs and various other things I don't even know, and if there's any problems with it you won't use it, because an embryo, as much as it can, when it's fertilised, it can look really good from the outside, but in the inside it could be put in you and it would never have worked because it was wrong on the inside. So that was kind of like something else we did, which...
And did the doctor previously not mention this?
It was something that was talked about, but it was another expense, and he kind of put us off it, the previous doctor, whereas Dr. Shawaf kind of encouraged it to a degree because it gave us, like, that's what increased the percentages, because once you get the embryo back that's had the genetic screening, it's normal. So you're not putting in an embryo that looks normal, but it's actually won't last. So then we were left with 3 again, which seems to be our number. Yeah. So, yeah, I found the whole process a lot better. As I said, I was in a much better mindset, and it was just before Christmas last year. And I'd like to say that, I'm sure I told you this, that the Christmas the last year was like a really hard time, and I just said to myself, whatever happens, I can't end 2017 the way that 2016 ended. And I said, I'll promise myself that I'll do everything I can to not feel the same way that I did. So I just had that at the back of my mind. That like there wasn't much time before the end of the year, but I just had to be in a better position. So I think we had the embryo transfer done on the 21st, and the doctor was actually away, but his colleague, who he couldn't recommend enough, who I'd met before, he was able to do it. And I was umming and ahhing, so I thought, I've been with my doctor, I've been waiting for him, he's been so amazing, but if I wait now, then it's going to be the next year. And my husband and I, Craig and I both agreed, we're going to go for it for this guy, to put the embryo back in. He was so nice, the whole thing was just, it went well. And I really, for the first time, just felt happy and positive. So I'm just in the car on my way to embryo transfer number 7 of all. This time it's quite different because we did the genetic screening and we have 3 embryos that are normal. We had 3 that were abnormal, so 3 that were normal, which hopefully increases our chances of it actually working. I've had acupuncture as well pre-transfer, which is something else that I haven't done. And it's the 21st of December, get through Christmas, and then hopefully find out around the 29th what's going on. So fingers crossed, gonna go for acupuncture tomorrow. Watch this space. So I'm ready to go. I'm at the hospital in my gown, and we're about to put the embryo back in. I've got a full bladder and feeling very calm and zen, and we will find out in 9 days. So the 21st of December, I had like 25 people around for Christmas lunch just to kind of put my mind off things. And I remember we were due to find out, I think it was the 29th or 27th of December. So I would have a blood test rather than do a pregnancy test because it can be more correct, or what's the word? Right, whatever. So I had the blood test like 7 in the morning, and then we went down to Selfridges just to do some window shopping, Craig and I. And then we had the call, we walked outside.
And so they didn't tell you there and
then? No, you've got to
then?
wait 3 hours to get the results back. So each time when you're waiting to find out if you're pregnant, you never find out then and there. I just remember, I'll never forget that, walking outside Selfridges and the doctor calling, being like, it's early days but you're pregnant. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'd been there before and I still felt nervous, but for some reason the whole thing felt different. And he just said, 1 step at a time. And we took it 1 step at a time, and it was just, couldn't believe that we had just got to that point within that year. It's New Year's Eve, and we found out 5 days ago, that I was pregnant, and it feels really fucking scary because we've been here a few times before and kind of never got past a certain point. Feeling really, really grateful that kind of got to this point before 2017 came to a close, because I promised myself last year that whatever happened, I just couldn't be in the same position that I was at the end of 2016, which was not in a really good place, and just feeling very sad. And obviously now things are different, but it's very early days. We're feeling very grateful, very happy, very excited, but taking each step at a time, and going to have regular blood tests to monitor the HCG levels, check that they're kind of rising as they should be, and fingers crossed it's our 4th time lucky, and 2019 will be a really fantastic year, and I'm really looking forward to it. We had New Year's where I went to my friend's house to have sushi, and I just was like, oh, I'm going to have some sweet potato. And then I think beginning of January, I think it was the 8th or something, I can't remember, we were able to have a 6-week scan. So we went to the doctor, and he's got like equipment or whatever, and you see it was like 2 millimeters long, and you just saw this flicker of a heartbeat. And I just remember,
and was that the first time you've seen it?
It's the first time I saw it, and I just in my head, I just, one day at a time, I just made myself feel like this is it, like I wouldn't let myself doubt it. And we saw the heartbeat there, I just said, thank fuck. Literally, Craig took a video, and all I said is, thank fuck for that. Thank fuck for that. I hadn't really got to that point in the other pregnancies, and, you know, I just couldn't believe it. But then it was like, okay, 6 weeks. Then I went to see him again at 8 weeks, and I went to see him again at 10 weeks.
I remember you saying, like, even though all the times it didn't work, you were that one that sat on that chair and was able to be positive and always think about, like, it will happen next time, whereas now you were kind of feeling really vulnerable because you'd got to week 6, week 7, week 8, week 9, and you were like, what if, you know, like that fear of like, well, it can't go wrong now because we've got this far. And I remember you were just so, and I think it was the lady you go to for reflexology that was just kind of like, don't even like think
one
about
hurdle
that.
at a time. It was like, have your 6-week scan, and then your next hurdle was 8 weeks. Like, I never thought about being pregnant in the summer or being pregnant on my birthday. I never let myself get away because I'd done that in the past, and it just wasn't healthy because it was unpredictable what I was going through, and IVF isn't forwards, you know, it's not straight sailing or whatever the phrase is. So I just really tried to be in the now and I did feel different, but I did feel so scared. But as you said, I did the 6-week, the 8-week, 10-week, and I remember going to the NHS for my 12-week scan and just being, and I thought I never ever thought that I would be there, you know, at the hospital, you know, having my scan and stuff, and I remember, you know, just feeling so grateful, and I couldn't believe it. And then I had the scan picture. I should probably go and find it for you. I had the scan picture and I was like, finally, I'm that person with the scan picture. And although I didn't share loads along the way because I found it hard, you know, people were so lovely, and, you know, and then there was people that were still going through it when I put a message on Instagram and they said how I'd given them hope, or they took something from my story, or they thought that it made them think that they might get there. And I did find that with some people when I heard stories, but sometimes it's hard when you're in the moment to look at anyone else's stories and get much from them because you're in your own pain. But we got there, and you know what, I think it was a journey. It was a journey, but you know, if you've got a good support network and good advice and you really believe, then I'm proof that you
like literally, because like it has been such a roller coaster of like highs and lows, and like we've kind of been there together, and like it is like you look sensational and so happy for you, Sarah. Thank you. Although I am gutted you're leaving me for a few months.
Yeah, sorry.
But honestly, like, even like when I was pregnant with Alfie and then had Alfie, and it was such like a roller coaster of emotions for the two of us working so
hard,
close
and
together.
you know what? For both of us, and we've not even really ever discussed this, but you know, it was obviously so hard for me because I had it with so many of my friends. You know, most of my friends, they've got 1, 2, 3 kids. You know, not that that's wrong or right or anything, and I'm not saying I'm old to have a baby, but I wanted to have one a long time before. But you know, it's still hard when you see other people having babies around you, and you know, I was so elated for you, as I was with all my other friends, but it was hard. Yeah. And you can't help but just feel like you wish it was you, and not in a jealous way and not in a negative way, but it's just
understandable.
It's emotional. But you know, we got through it and we were there for each other.
And look, you've got a few weeks left and now ready to put your feet up and relax.
My swollen feet up.
And nest before this beautiful Bubba arrives. And I just, you know, it was finding the right time to open up and share this video. I think a few people have approached Sarah to kind of tell the story. And I think we both felt that we wanted to do it in a way that felt right for you, for us, for our brand. And, you know, with YouTube, we feel like this was our right.
And also, as you can see, this is an honest conversation.
We've never
really sat and talked properly about this. And I've probably jabbled on and gone in tangents and stuff, but...
Do you know what? If it makes one person, you know what, feel better. I feel better from the conversation. So, you know what, as long as we're giving out positive messages, and you know what we always say, don't believe what you see on Instagram, what you see on Facebook, because the amount of times Sarah, or the two of us, you know, we've had a really
We used to say, can I just make you laugh, when we used to do our kind of walking poses, when we used to shoot for the blog, if it was a bad period, we used to smile and say shit, 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 and that was our phrase, because things were so shit that we could put on this brave face during the blog, and she helped me do it a lot. And
yeah, now onwards and upwards.
And please, if anyone's got any questions, I mean, I know I haven't talked scientifically probably in the correct way, so forgive me, doctors, but that was kind of my journey and my story and my words. And if there's anything I can do to help people, to email us or leave comments below, you know, we'd love to help in any way we can. And hopefully anyone that's going through this, just wish you so much. You're not alone. And it happens to not everyone, but so many people have issues, and we want to be there for you, and we're lucky to have a platform to be able to talk about these things. And we hope that we've given something with this video, and thank you for watching, and then it'll be back to close. So I am just actually looking over my video diary that I started during IVF number 3, and I realised that I haven't actually done a video for a really long time, since I found out very early that I was pregnant. And I'm now 7 months in, and just looking back at all those videos just made me feel very emotional and so grateful that our journey got us here, and that I can feel my baby and see my baby on scans, and that it's finally happening in 2 months' time, please God. Baby Ellis will be due, and it has been quite a journey, and I've learned a lot along the way, but I want to share my journey with everyone, just to help people, to maybe make people understand a bit more about things, and just share my story to see if any way it can make people more successful on their journey, or give them any advice, because I found that I didn't really have anywhere to look for advice. I didn't have anyone to speak to, and I wanted to change that. And I hope you have enjoyed this journey so far, and please let me know if you have any questions, because I'd love to answer them and help in any way I can.
Oh my god. Well, it was intense.